I still remember the way their hands pressed down on my shoulders, pinning me against the carpet as I screamed and kicked, begging them to stop. My dad's face was red with anger, his eyes locked on mine as he shouted, "It's for your own good." My mom's grip on my arms tightened when I tried to wriggle free, her lips trembling as she told me to calm down. But how could I calm down when my brother was kneeling beside me, holding that syringe filled with HGH, his hands shaking as he tried to stab it into my thigh? I'll never forget the way his voice broke when he yelled, "Better dead than short," like he really believed it. I didn't say a word after that day. I ran out of the house barefoot, sprinting down the driveway with my heart pounding so loud I could barely hear their cheers behind me. They actually cheered him on. Their only son. Their pride. Their golden boy. While I was just the weak, small disappointment they tried to fix with a needle. That was 8 years ago. I built my own life from nothing since then. I never went back. I never called. I never forgave. But this morning, everything changed. I was wiping down tables before the breakfast rush at my little restaurant when I saw someone standing outside by the window. I didn't think much of it until I turned around and saw his face. It was him. My brother. Tears were streaming down his cheeks. His hands were shaking the same way they did that day. And in that moment, every scar they left inside me burned all over again. I stood frozen, wondering why he was here after all these years, and what he was about to say. I didn't move from behind the counter. I just watched him through the glass, my chest tight and my stomach twisted in knots. He looked so different from the boy who pinned me down. His hair was longer, his shoulders broader, but there was something broken in his eyes. Part of me wanted to unlock the door and ask what he was doing here. Another part of me wanted to hide in the kitchen until he left. I kept thinking about that day. How his hands trembled as he tried to inject me. How he cried while doing it. Back then, I didn't understand. I thought he was crying because he felt bad for hurting me. But later, I realized he was crying because he was scared of what our parents would do if he refused. Our parents had always been obsessed with appearance. Tall, strong, perfect. Dad used to measure us every few months, marking our heights against the pantry door frame like a twisted ritual. Every time my line moved up only a little, he'd sigh and shake his head. Mom would say, "Don't worry, we'll find a solution." I never knew that solution was going to be a syringe full of hormones until that day. After I ran away, I cut them all off. Changed my number. Lived in shelters. Took dishwashing jobs until I could rent a room. Slowly, I saved enough to open this little restaurant. It was the first place I ever felt safe. But seeing my brother standing there, crying like a child, ripped that safety away in seconds. My hands were shaking so badly I almost dropped the coffee pot. He raised his hand, as if to wave, then lowered it again. I could see his lips moving. He was saying something. Begging. Apologizing. I didn't know which. All I knew was that my past had found me again, and I wasn't ready. I couldn't bring myself to open the door. I just stood there, staring at him through the glass while my staff moved around me, preparing for customers. One of the waitresses, Hannah, asked if I was okay. I forced a small smile and told her I was fine, but my chest felt like it was caving in. I saw my brother press his forehead against the window for a second before he stepped back, wiping his tears with the back of his hand. It was like he didn't care who saw him crying. The same boy who once chased me down the driveway yelling hateful words now looked like he'd completely fallen apart. Part of me wanted to scream at him to leave. Another part wanted to run out and hug him because despite everything, he was still my brother. But then, flashes of that day kept coming back. The carpet against my cheek. My dad's heavy breathing as he held me down. My mom telling me to stop acting like a baby. And my brother's tears as he pushed the needle closer to my leg. My knees felt weak just thinking about it. I thought about how alone I was back then. At school, no one cared why I suddenly stopped talking. They just teased me for being the quiet, short kid. At night, I cried myself to sleep on a thin mattress on the shelter floor. But I survived. I built a life they couldn't reach. Until now. He didn't leave. He just stood there, staring at me through blurry eyes, mouthing words I couldn't hear. Finally, I walked into the kitchen and hid behind the door. I pressed my back against the cold metal fridge, trying to catch my breath. I heard the bell above the front door jingle. My heart stopped. I thought he had come in. But when I peeked out, It was just a customer. Hannah was serving them, smiling as if nothing was wrong. I felt sick. Why was he here? Did he want forgiveness? Was he sent by our parents? Were they sick? Dead? Or did he finally feel guilty after all these years? I hated that I cared. I hated that his tears made my chest hurt. I hated that I still missed him. Before everything went wrong, he used to read comic books with me at night. He used to cover for me when I snuck cookies before dinner. He used to tell me I was his favorite person in the world. But that boy disappeared the day he held that syringe. Or maybe he disappeared long before that, when our parents poisoned him with their twisted dreams. My phone buzzed in my apron pocket. I pulled it out with trembling fingers. A text from an unknown number. My eyes scanned it quickly. Please. I just need to talk to you. I'm outside. I'm sorry for everything. Please don't hate me. I wanted to throw my phone across the room. I wanted to scream. But I just stood there, staring at his words, feeling the old pain twist deeper into my chest. I knew opening that door would change everything. But I also knew that if I didn't, I'd spend the rest of my life wondering why he came. My hands were sweating so much I could barely hold my phone. I tucked it back into my apron and pressed my palms against my thighs, trying to calm the shaking. Through the kitchen door's small window, I could see him pacing back and forth outside. Every few seconds he looked up at the restaurant sign like he was trying to gather courage. Customers started filling the tables. The smell of freshly baked bread and brewed coffee spread through the room, mixing with my rising panic. Hannah called out that table for needed me. I wiped my eyes quickly and walked out, forcing a smile as I took their order. But my brother's figure at the window kept catching my eye. After taking their order, I slipped behind the counter again, pretending to check receipts while I watched him. Memories flashed through my mind like a broken film reel. Him reading comic books to me under a blanket with a flashlight. Him pushing me off my bike when I couldn't keep up. Him pinning me down with tears in his eyes, holding that syringe. My chest felt like it was being ripped apart. I wondered if he ever thought about what he did. Or if it haunted him the way it haunted me. The bell above the door jingled again. My head snapped up. It was him. He walked in slowly, his shoulders hunched like he was carrying the entire world's weight. His eyes were red and swollen. For a second, no one noticed him. But then Hannah asked, "Hi, table for one." He shook his head and just pointed at me. Everyone's eyes turned to me. My heart raced so hard I thought it would burst. I felt trapped. I couldn't run. I couldn't scream. I just stood there frozen as he walked up to the counter. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. His lips trembled. Tears started spilling down his cheeks again. Customers were staring. Hannah looked confused and worried. I clenched my fists so tight my nails dug into my palms. Finally, he whispered so quietly only I could hear him. "Please, can we talk? I've been looking for you for so long. I'm so sorry. Please." I didn't say anything. I couldn't. My throat felt like it was closing up. He kept talking, his voice shaking with every word. "I didn't want to do it. I swear to God. They said they'd hurt you worse if I didn't. They said they'd kill you. I was trying to protect you. Please believe me." Everything around me blurred. The sound of plates clinking, people chatting, Hannah calling my name, it all faded. All I could hear was his voice. All I could see were his tears. I felt like I was back on that carpet, pinned down, helpless. But this time, he was the one kneeling in front of me, shaking, begging for mercy. I could barely breathe. My vision darkened at the edges. Customers were whispering, wondering what was happening. Hannah placed a gentle hand on my arm, asking if she should call security. I didn't answer. I just kept staring at him as he reached out, his hand trembling in the air between us. The past 8 years of pain, anger, betrayal, and grief slammed into me all at once. I didn't know if I was about to scream, faint, or finally hear the truth I'd buried so deep that I almost convinced myself it never happened. My brother's hand stayed suspended in the air between us. I could see his fingers trembling, his knuckles pale. For a moment, I almost reached out. Almost. But then the door swung open behind him with a loud bang. I flinched, my heart skipping a beat. 2 people stepped inside. A man and a woman. Well-dressed. Serious faces. Their eyes locked on him immediately. He turned around, startled, and his face went pale. The woman spoke first, her voice calm but sharp. "There you are. We've been looking everywhere. You can't just leave without telling us. You know how dangerous that is." She sounded exactly like our mother. Cold. Controlled. My stomach twisted as memories flooded back, their voices echoing in my head from years ago. The man stepped forward, placing a firm hand on my brother's shoulder. "Let's go. We have a meeting with Dr. Simmons at noon. He's waiting for your blood work." My brother shook his head violently, tears streaming down his face. "No, please, just give me a minute. I need to talk to him. Please." The woman's eyes flicked to me, scanning me from head to toe with a cold curiosity. "So this is where you've been hiding all these years?" she said softly, almost with amusement. My chest tightened. My legs felt weak. I gripped the counter to keep from collapsing. She turned back to him. "He doesn't matter anymore. Let's go." My brother dropped to his knees right there on the floor. Customers gasped. Hannah rushed forward, but I held her back. He was sobbing now, loud, desperate cries that echoed through the restaurant. "Please, please, you don't understand. I need to tell him. I need to tell him the truth. Please don't take me back." The man's grip tightened on his shoulder. "Get up," he ordered. My brother whimpered and clung to the counter, reaching out to me again. "They lied to you," he cried out, his voice cracking. "They lied to both of us. It wasn't just HGH, it was something else. Please, you need to know, you're in danger too." My vision blurred. My ears rang. Customers whispered in confusion and fear. Hannah grabbed her phone, threatening to call the police. The woman smiled coldly and said, "Call them. It won't change anything." My brother was sobbing so hard he could barely breathe. "Please, please, it's not what you think. I was trying to save you. You're not safe. They're not done with you, please." I couldn't move. My entire body felt frozen. The man yanked my brother to his feet and started dragging him towards the door. My brother kept reaching out to me, his eyes wild with panic. "Please! Don't let them take me! Please! They'll kill me! They'll kill you too! Please listen to me!" The woman leaned closer to him and whispered something in his ear that made him flinch in terror. He went silent, his body going limp as they pulled him away. Before he crossed the door, he turned to look at me one last time, tears dripping down his chin. His eyes were screaming a warning I didn't understand. And then they were gone, leaving me standing there, shaking, staring at the empty doorway, wondering what secrets my family still held, and if I'd survive learning them. I stood there frozen long after they left. My staff kept asking if I was okay, but their voices felt far away. All I could hear was my brother's cries echoing in my head. "They're not done with you, they'll kill you too." I didn't understand what he meant. What else could they want from me after all these years? Why now? I closed the restaurant early that day. As I locked up, I noticed an envelope tucked under the door. My hands shook as I picked it up. It didn't have a name on it, just my address written in neat handwriting. I tore it open right there on the sidewalk. Inside was a single photograph. My brother and I as kids, sitting under the tree in our old backyard, eating ice cream. Behind us stood my parents, smiling. But taped to the back of the photo was a tiny slip of paper. My breath caught as I read the words written in shaky ink. "Check under the old tree. It's the only way you'll know the truth." That night, I drove back to my childhood home. I hadn't been there in 8 years, but every crack on the driveway was still burned into my memory. The house was dark and silent. My heart pounded as I stepped onto the dead grass and walked to the tree in the backyard. Moonlight filtered through the branches, casting shadows that danced across the dirt. I dropped to my knees and started digging with my bare hands. The soil was cold and rough, tearing my nails, but I didn't stop until my fingers hit something hard. I pulled out a small metal box, rusted and locked. I smashed it open with a brick. Inside were dozens of papers, medical files, research notes, signed documents. My eyes scanned the pages, each line making my blood run colder. My parents hadn't just been injecting me with HGH. They had enrolled both me and my brother in an illegal experimental hormone program run by a private clinic. The documents listed horrifying side effects, organ failure, neurological damage, death. It was all there. The signatures. The payments. Their plan to create a perfect genetically enhanced family legacy. My stomach turned as I realized why my brother had come. He wasn't just apologizing. He was warning me because he had found out he was dying. They knew it too. That's why they dragged him away so quickly. They didn't want him exposing their secret. As I sat there shaking, reading through the papers, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number lit up the screen. "We know what you found. Don't think this is over." My chest tightened in terror as I looked around the silent yard, feeling the shadows closing in. My brother was right. They weren't done with me yet. And now, they knew I was finally ready to fight back. I sat under that tree for what felt like hours, staring at the papers scattered around me. My chest was tight, and I couldn't stop shaking. Everything I tried to forget had come back, but this time with the truth that made it all so much worse. My brother had never been my enemy. He was a victim, just like me. He'd spent his entire life under their control, forced to be their experiment, forced to hurt the only person who ever loved him unconditionally. And now, he was dying because of them. As dawn broke, I gathered the documents and stuffed them into my backpack. My hands were covered in dirt and blood from digging, but I didn't care. I stood up and looked at that house one last time. The house where I'd lost my voice, my childhood, and my trust and family. The house where my brother lost his life before it even ended. I drove straight to the police station. For the first time in years, I spoke about everything. I handed over the documents, every signed consent form, every illegal experiment report. The officer listened silently, her eyes growing wide with each page she flipped. She promised they would start an investigation immediately. I gave my statement for hours, my voice trembling but steady, feeling each word heal a small part of the child inside me who never got to speak. A week later, I received a call. My parents had been arrested. The clinic they worked with was being shut down, and all their illegal experiments exposed. I sat in my small restaurant after closing time, staring at the empty tables, thinking about my brother. I found out he was admitted to a private hospital after they dragged him out of my place. He was dying, just like he said. His organs were failing, and he didn't have much time left. I visited him. When he saw me walk into his hospital room, his eyes filled with tears. He tried to sit up, but he was too weak. I held his hand and for the first time in 8 years I spoke to him. I told him I forgave him. That none of it was his fault. That he was my big brother, and no matter what they did to us, I still loved him. His tears fell silently as he squeezed my hand, whispering, "Thank you for saving me, even now." He died 2 days later. At his funeral, I stood in silence, feeling the wind brush against my face. It felt like he was finally free. And so was I. My parents were gone, their power broken. Their twisted dreams ended with them. I returned to my restaurant and continued building the life I fought for. Every morning, I brewed coffee and baked bread, greeting customers with a smile, knowing I was no longer hiding. I was living. Sometimes, when the sun rises and the golden light fills my little cafe, I feel him there. My brother. The boy who read comics with me under a blanket. The boy who tried to save me in the only way he knew how. And in those quiet moments, I whisper back to him, "We made it. We're finally safe."